Welcome to Narrative Writing Part 3, Installment number 1. This is a two-part series today, where today we're going to talk about hooks, how to get a good hook, how to grab your reader's attention and keep them engaged. And then in our second part, we will talk about show, don't tell in Narrative Part 3, Installment number 2. So, what you need to realize when you are writing anything is that you need to grab your reader's attention. Your story, narrative, argumentative writing, expository writing, anything you ever write needs to start off with a good hook. This way your reader will want to read on. If you do not have a good hook, then your reader will not want to read on. So anything that you are writing for the rest of this year, for anything in the rest of your life, needs to start off with a good hook. Basically, any genre uses hooks. So it doesn't matter what type of writing you are doing. Make sure that you choose a hook that's appropriate for your topic, audience, and purpose. Okay? And all of those three, narrative, argumentative, and expository, explanatory writing that we're going to focus on this year will all need a good hook. So I'm going to start off with a little example from a book. Broom, broom, brippity, brippity, good. His dad had the pickup going. That's how Abridged Terabithia begins, and again, with this hook, it makes me want to read on. What was going on that his dad couldn't get the pickup truck going, and then once the pickup was going, where are they going? I have to read on to find that information, so I'm already hooked. The king is dead. Those 4 words, cold as marble and sharp as flint, were uttered by the thin, cruel lips of Edward Seymour, the king's privy councillor and my brother's uncle. In this way I learned of my father's death. Again, someone has died, and at first we just think it's the king. Now we realize that it's actually the princess's father who has died. And so we know now, this is in Beware Princess Elizabeth, that she is the main character and that her dad has died. So there's a couple different types of hooks that you might want to try using. One really good way to get your reader's attention is to start off with a fact or statistic. Now, these facts or statistics need to be interesting, not boring facts. So if we are going to do a writing paper on, say, the Black Plague, we might start off with something like this. Nearly 1/3 of the population of Europe was killed by the plague. Okay, that's a shocking fact. It grabs our attention, it grabs your reader's attention, and makes you want to read on to find out more. Perhaps you want to set the tone or the mood. So again, talk about the same topic. The bodies piled up on the streets of London, untouched, uncared for, mourned by the frightened masses that were left behind, wondering when it was going to be their turn to die. You have set this very drastic mood and tone, and it makes the reader want to read on. What is going on? The bodies are piling up. Why is this person going to be next? You might want to try a simile or a metaphor. So again, talking about the Black Plague, the Black Death swept across land like a broom brushing away people as it would dirt. So again, you're using, talking about the Black Death and comparing it to an inanimate object and saying how they compare. Perhaps you want to start with the middle of the action, right? So you're going to have some sort of action going on. And if you're writing a narrative, obviously you want your narrative to be sequential, but sometimes you want to start in the middle of the narrative. So start off at the middle and then go back and backtrack and explain what you're talking about. So here's how they do that. The trunchbuck cranked back slowly, then released suddenly, launching the stone up and over the walls of the city. And this is in regards of during this, they blocked all the walls so that people couldn't get in, thinking that that would stop the spread of the plague. And so these people on the outside were trying to get into the city. So we're in the middle of the action. The plague is in full force. These people are trying to get into the city. And that's how we are in the middle of the action on that scene. You might want to make a definition. Now, again, this needs to be an interesting definition. So don't give a boring definition. So look at how they describe or defined the plague. The Black Death was an unstoppable disease caused by the fleas carried by the rats that cohabitated with the people of medieval Europe. So you see here that they have started by defining what exactly is the Black Death, but again, in an interesting way. You might want to use some dialogue. So you might have some characters that are having a conversation back and forth. So, for example, again, talking about the plague, I see there's been no improvement the apothecary sadly admitted, looking at a small girl trembling and sweating with fever before him. So you have the person who's there to help the girl, and like a pharmacist of the time, and he says there's been no improvement. So we actually have this dialogue, this talking between him and obviously her family members. You might want to use an automatopoeia. An automatopoeia is a word that sounds just like it is, like crash, boom, bang. The sound actually is the word. You know, a cat says meow, and it's spelled and it sounds just the way it sounds, and it's spelled just that way too. So here we have an automatopoeia. Sizzle, the fever burned through the victim's body. Okay, so that sizzle, that's what sizzle actually sounds like. It's a word that makes the same sound. You might want to use the 3-word staccato. So you're going to take 3 very powerful words and start out with them first and then explain what it is. So rats, sewer, filth. London was not a city of great cleanliness. So those 3 words are very powerful, and it's just 3 words alone, and then you move on with the rest of your sentence. Again, I'm hooked as a reader because I want to know what is going on. Again, you could try using lyrics. So this would be songs. Keep in mind your topic, audience, and purpose. In this case, they used Ring Around the Rosie because that was actually about the plague. With the ashes, ashes, we all fall down. That's the people dying from getting the plague, right? So that's where that lyric came from, and that's where that song actually came from. So starting that paper that way grabs your reader's attention, and for those that are familiar with the song, they just didn't know what it meant. Now it gives them a little insight as to what it means. And then the last thing you could possibly do is do a theme. So sticking to your theme. Some people believe that the plague was sent to punish evil on earth, but they would soon learn that the disease knew no such ethics. It did not distinguish its victims. So you have here where you're setting off with a theme. Okay, so all of these are great ways to start off your story. When you are writing any type of writing, be creative in that first sentence. Get your reader's attention. Okay, so when you start off, you obviously need to start by getting your reader's attention, introducing your topic, and then continuing on. And that hook is what's going to make readers want to read on. And more importantly, it's going to want to make me, your teacher, want to read on. Okay. So what you are going to do is, if you haven't been doing it already, you need to take some notes on some of the different hooks we talked about. So you can create a document in Google Classroom under this assignment and type your notes straight into that so that we have an idea of understanding, and so I can see that you clearly understand the concept of what hooks are and how to use them. That is your homework for this assignment, is to take those notes and make sure they get added and turned in Google Classroom. So you are actually going to go to Classroom and create the document in Classroom. Type your notes in there. You can listen to this video again if you need to. One thing that another student was doing was listening to the video while they were typing the notes. So you can pull up your note page once you create that document in Classroom and then re-listen to the video and take your notes there. You can also try taking notes while you're listening on a piece of paper and then transferring them to the document.